All right. Welcome back to the podcast, back to Tomboy Official. Right now, I'm in this mini series about what it's like to be a QPOC person living in a house, sharing a house or apartment, or having roommates. So I'm talking about the phase where I lived alone as an RA on campus in San Diego, and it was for one term of school, and then for the second term we were gonna have to share rooms, but I got my own suite initially. So yeah, I was still paying rent. So basically, I'll just say, if you didn't listen to the other episodes, I'm recording this because I know a lot of people are moving in with people because of the economy. People are moving back with families. People are moving in with roommates, housemates, and maybe something I have to say about some of my experiences will help somebody in some of theirs. I haven't always had terrible experiences with housemates though, and this is just proof that some were worse than others. But yeah, most of my experiences, my housemates that I'd had, most of them started out pretty well, and I was pretty comfortable for at least a year or two at most of the places I had lived. So the first place I lived, after moving out from the housemate or the apartment mate that had the kid, I think he was 4 or 5 when I first moved in. The kid was, the guy was in law school, gonna study for the bar. He was teaching English as a second language. He had left for a while because he had problems with his ex-wife. They were having some weird issue. He left and moved for maybe 3 months or so. During that time of 3 months, another lady that he had screened, who also went to USD, she moved in, and so it was me and her for 3 months or so. And then I did have times, I can't recall if I had multiple times where I was by myself, living in the house by myself, because he would be gone for 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time sometimes. He would take trips and go out of town and teach English out of town and do other stuff, and so out of country and do other stuff. And so I wasn't too involved in his life to really know all those details, and maybe he told me, but I don't remember. But I had his ex-wife's information, and she lived down the street, and they had previously lived together before I had even moved in, and I just knew her. I knew of her through him, and maybe met her once or twice, because she would come and pick up their shared son on occasion. And then I remember getting the opportunity to move in to campus because I got a job as an RA. One of my close friends in my cohort was like, you should work as an RA, you should work as an RA, you get your own room. Because I remember I would kind of complain about having a roommate, and I'll be like, I don't really like living with anybody. And she's like, well, if you become an RA, you live in your own room, and we could work together, and because she wanted to work with me and stuff. And that sounded appealing. I was like, okay, I get my own place. And she explained the food on campus is free for RAs, and she kind of explained the job. So basically the job was you had to go to meetings. For all the RAs had to go to meetings, and there was an RA in, I don't know if it was every building. Let's call them building A, B, C, D. Or no, they had numbers. No, they had letters. I think there was buildings A, B, C, D, that, and then the buildings that were more administrative buildings or hangout buildings. I think there was a laundry building next to the pool, inside the pool area. There were buildings for English First program, which those buildings were on the other side of campus. So those kids were basically people from other countries that would just come, and they would just be partying all night long, pretty much. They weren't there really for intensive school, but I was there in grad school. My friend was there in grad school. But my friend pretty much lived on that campus the whole time. Um, and she took an RA position and told me about the position, helped me to get hired onto the position. So I had my own private suite, basically. Just the only catch to it was you didn't have a kitchen in your suite. And they told us we weren't allowed to have like cookers, burners. I don't remember if we could have, I think we could have rice cookers. No open flame for sure, but I think we could have rice cookers, coffee pots, um, like maybe like a hot plate if it had a cover. I can't remember the exact rules. Like they had some kind of rules where like you could technically cook in your space, but like we didn't have garbage disposals either, so it was like you couldn't really like wash down the dishes too good. But we had a sink in the bathroom. I think we had two sinks in each bathroom because the way the suites were set up is there would be upstairs. It was almost like they remind me of camp cabins almost, but like it had a camp cabin feel more than like an actual solid apartment dorm type feel. Like I've been to schools where like the dorms were like apartment complexes. Like these were more like carpeted cabins. Like they weren't like too nice, but they weren't messed up. They just didn't have good insulation. You could hear people walking up and down the stairs. They didn't have good like insulation at the walls. Like back then Candy Crush was super popular. It's when it like was first getting popular, and I remember the person not in the wall, but the person who I shared a wall with on one side was always playing that game really loud. So basically my room was on the top level to the left of one building, and then there was another room that would have been on the top level towards the right. So we would have both been on the same level upstairs. But I was an RA, so I didn't have anyone sharing the suite with me. So when you would walk in the suite, the front door would lead to just the bedroom, the little living room space. Each little living room space had like a small couch and maybe one or two chairs, and it had a coffee table, a lamp, maybe two lamps, I don't know. I don't think there was much more in there. And then there was just a huge window that would overlook the whole part of the campus where the residents would stay. And then if you went like to the like basically there was a hallway that was, behind the living room. So basically the hallway went behind where the couch wall was, and it would go to the left or the right. So if you walk straight into the dorm, you would see the little living room space, and you could go straight to the back through that door opening to the bathroom. The bathroom had a stand-up shower. I don't think it had a tub. It had a shower, a toilet. The shower and toilet had its own separate private door, and then the bathroom where the part where the sinks were, there were two sinks, and it had like a door there too. So I think the reason why it was set up that way was because you could put up to 4 people in these dorms. And so usually most dorms, like students would have to pay, and most dorms, one was to the left of the bathroom, one was to the right of the bathroom, and each one had like a twin bed in it. And then like a built-in table, again, along like that same side of the living room wall, that had the big window. There was a huge window in the bedroom as well, but there was a desk all the way across that wall. It was like a built-in counter, like a countertop type of desk, with like built-in shelving, and a chair or two. And then I think there was some lighting up above, and then there was a closet in there. like a built-in closet. I don't think mine had a door. I can't remember. And then the other room on the other side of the bathroom was similar. So I initially started sleeping in the side of the dorm suite that wasn't sharing a wall with anybody, but I had another cohort member that was sharing. I think no, she had the whole suite to herself, but I think she used one of the dorm rooms as storage and the other one she used as her bedroom. And I think she I think when I was, it was quieter on that side because I remember the people on my left, like they were noisy, they were loud. It was always loud over there, and I couldn't sleep too good. And so I remember I just switched and started sleeping on the other room. I think I took a mattress and just put it in the other room. Most people would put the beds together so you would have one big bed. Because if you were an RA, you had both suites to yourself, basically. Both rooms to yourself. So it was a whole suite. You had like a living room, a bathroom, and 2 dorm rooms to yourself. So that term, that's what I got. And then there was no mini fridge in there, but you could add a mini fridge. You could add, like I said, I think like a rice cooker, all kinds of stuff. So some people actually did cook in their room and like had their own private meals and stuff prepared. And then you could basically eat in your room. Like nobody really monitored you about that. You had to take your trash out. And if you would put your trash outside, like there were trash cans outside the door, and then like, they would get ants and raccoons and all kinds of stuff, but like somebody would come and empty the trash like every day pretty much. I think every day. It didn't seem to get too crowded, too overly stuffed. But that was just enough space for me. I was fine with it. It was just hard having upstairs because I had an upstairs room. I couldn't work out or anything. And so downstairs was, just like another dorm that was pretty much the same style, just they didn't have to go upstairs. Well, maybe they did, because some dorms were on like a hill, so you'd have to go upstairs to get to the first level and then up the next set of stairs to get to the second level. And the first level was actually like on the ground, and then there was only one flight of stairs to get upstairs. And so there was that, and so there were 4 suites on each side, and then on the back side there were 4 suites on those sides. So these rooms had up to 4 people per suite, and then some had 2 people or 3 people or 1 person, or some of them were empty. And so I was in charge as an RA of a couple of the buildings. I can't remember which ones. The one I think it was my whole building that I was in, and like the face of the building that was facing me, I think. And then I think one of the friends I made as an RA, he was in charge of his building, and then across from him was the back of my building. And we, so let me see. That's a little bit about the time where the queer stuff started getting a little more complex, because up until that point, I was living with people that were not really part of my cohort, not really part of my school. Like I mentioned, that other housemate that had the drinking problem in the other episode, I talked about him. But like, we weren't in the same major, we weren't in the same cohort, we weren't doing the same thing. We just happened to sometimes be at school at the same time. And I don't remember ever really seeing him at school. I only really remember seeing him maybe once or twice when I was walking home, because at some point I used to take the bus, because I thought I was really like trying to save a lot of money, and I realized when I did the math, I was like, well, it's cheaper to just walk down to the bus station and take the bus. But then I realized that takes so long, and like I can just get a freaking parking pass and park on campus. Like I lived like not even 5 miles from campus, so I was like, well, why don't I just freaking get on, just drive. And so, but at first, I think the very beginning, I used to take the bus to school, the public bus, and there was a bus stop, a bus station kind of area at the campus, and so I would ride the bus to school, and I think he would ride the bus because he didn't have a car. And then I remember giving him rides on occasion, and I used to park off campus, and I used to walk because I didn't want to pay parking. And then he played football. I don't know if he was actively playing at that time. I don't recall, but I remember he would walk with me, and I remember he was like, because I was in good shape back then, and he was like, oh, you're the only person I know who can like walk up these hills without stopping. Because if you know that area of LA, like Cal State LA area, if you know that area, it's very, very hilly. And if you know the area very well, if you drive around off campus, like there's all these really hilly like residential areas on one side. Then on the front part of campus where you would drive in, there's all this weird little industrial area, but it's really hilly too. And so we would, I would park off campus because it was free, and then I would just like walk. I mean, it had to be like a 20-minute walk. It was far, like, and with your backpack and all your books and laptop and all this other stuff. So like, I would drive me and him to campus. I think maybe I would call him after class or something and bring us both home. Like, I don't remember exactly, but I remember doing that some of the time. And yeah, but yeah, other than that, I never really lived with anybody that I really interacted with too much surrounding school. And so I was always able to just kind of do my own thing, have my own private life, and just, when I was home, I was home. When I was at school, like nothing really like overlapped. But this time living on campus was the first time where it all just overlapped. And because the dorms were like on the campus, like the classes were all in a certain section, and then there was like a parking lot and like a driving street separating our campus, our school part of the campus with the classes and stuff, from like the dorm areas. And so, not everybody in my cohort went up to the dorms, but there were a lot of the grad students living in the dorms that were in my cohort. So it was me. This isn't going to be an exhaustive list, but there was me. I think my cohort was 15 of us. Myself, this other friend of mine who lived, I think, the building behind my building, I believe. Another student who was a friend of mine, who was an RA, who was also in my cohort. I think at one point, those two ladies were sharing, I think before that friend in the cohort got me to apply for this job, she was living with that other cohort friend. And we all lived, like, we eventually all lived on campus together, but they had lived together in one suite at one point. They had some kind of falling out, but I never got involved in it. There was another lady who lived she had, the one that I said I shared a wall with when I lived on that top level suite. She was not an RA, but she had some kind of a job position on campus. I can't recall what it was, but she had her own dorm suite to herself. I still was renting, by the way. I was still paying rent at the apartment near USD. I don't know why I was doing that, but I didn't want to move all my stuff out, so I was still paying rent over there. And then I would go back every now and then when I needed like clothes or stuff, but I didn't live there for like a whole term of school. So it was either like 10 weeks or 16 weeks. I can't recall because I can't remember if we had like quarters or semesters. But yeah, I had done that. I moved yeah, and there was another lady, I think she lived on campus. I can't remember if she worked as an RA and then stopped working as an RA and then got her own apartment. I want to say over in Sabre Springs. I knew a lot of people who lived over in Sabre Springs area, like Poway-ish. Uh, I can't remember if she lived there or somewhere else, but she lived on campus, I think, at one point and then moved off campus. Um, so I think of my cohort, those were the people living on campus already. So I would already see these people in class, and then I would see them, on campus because they lived on campus. Um, and I remember that becoming a little challenging for me because um, I started getting involved, not like way too seriously, but I started getting kind of like um, a little bit involved with a person who was um, some lady. I can't remember exactly if I was going to talk about that or not. But basically, uh, okay, so I'll talk about the work stuff first and then the queer stuff next. But the job roles were basically that we were supposed to um like we would have a week where we would be on call, meaning from the time the main office on campus, the resident office on campus closed, because there was like a physical office near the dorms. That physical office had offices, a couple office rooms for the staff that was like in charge of all the dorms and everything. And then there was also like a hangout area in there where we would have our meetings, but it was also like students could use it as a kitchen. There was a full kitchen in there, a full fridge in there. People who lived on campus could store their food in there. If they actually had extra food or wanted to cook or didn't have a mini fridge, they could store their food. Um, and people could also um, not only store food, but they could cook food and they could hang out on the couches. And so the job, I usually, like, let's say if I was on call for 1 week, I would have the duty phone, which that would mean, say the office was open 9 to 5. I don't really remember, but let's just say it was open weekdays 9 to 5, right? So I would have to turn on the duty phone when the office would close. So basically, they needed it so that residents, people who resided on campus, students who lived on campus that weren't part of the English First program, because that was a whole other program with their own dorms and their own RAs and everything. We were in charge of the people who actually went to our school, grad or undergrad. And sometimes there would be visitors, like parents during graduation weeks, or like visitors, like there were dorms, suites where there could be visitors coming in and they could like rent it out and stay there for like a while or whatever. It was like excessively priced, but I can't remember the price. And the dorms were excessively priced too. That's why people shared them, because it was like probably over $1,000 just to share. I think it was like $3,000 a month or $2,000 or something just to have your own suite to yourself. And they didn't even have kitchens, but you could use the building, like the residence building. You could use that office building that had the couches and the TV and like stuff like that in there. I think it had like cable or Netflix. I can't remember what it had, satellite or something. Like people would go in there. So basically anytime during 9 to 5, people could come and go into that RA building because it was open. The doors were unlocked. It was open. They could go in and out. So say if you didn't have class one day and you wanted to like watch a movie with your friends, but you didn't want them all in your dorm or you didn't have a TV, you could all, I think you had to sign up for the room from one time to another, and you and your friends could all go in there and like use the room for free as long as the time was allotted to you, and you could go in there and have, your own friends, your own private kind of movie night or whatever you wanted to do. During school, whatever. Like they weren't paying attention to all that. It's just, if it was open 9 to 5, free to the students who lived on campus. It was like a hangout building for them. And then, after 5, so from the hours of 5 p.m. when that office was closed, there were no workers there. No one was answering those phones. The RAs, we had this duty phone that we would pass around. Every week you would have a turn to have a whole week on duty, which would mean that weekdays when the office would close 9 to 5, you would be on call from 5 p.m. to 9 a.m. Meaning you had to keep the phone on and you had to answer the calls. Most of the time it was people locking themselves out of their rooms. Some of the time it was other stuff. Some of the time they wanted to use building 20. I think it was called building 20. Yeah. And you could use the building. It was the building that I said had all the couches and the kitchen and all that. They could use it to cook. They could use it to watch movies with their friends. But I think it was until 10 p.m. every night. And if you wanted to sleep earlier, you could call security. And security, basically, they did one walkthrough in the campus with you. Some of them would drive around once in the golf cart. And then the last step that you would do would be to lock that building. So nobody was allowed in there without your permission. Like they always knew who was in the building because people would have to sign in or sign out. And, if somebody had called you and you're on duty, say it's like 7, they want to use the building from 7 to 9 or something to cook and then watch a movie with their friends. And say they stayed and it was like 10 o'clock and you were doing your rounds, you would tell them, hey, you got to go. Security would help you get them out. Like, it wasn't like aggressive, but like they would be there with you so you could get them to leave, and then you would lock the building, check all the locks and everything, and then you would let them leave. And then you'd lock up, and then you basically would do reports anytime you had something to do while you were on duty. You could have a whole week where nothing happened at all and nobody ever called you while you were on duty, and that was totally fine. And you could have weeks where people will call you at 3 a.m. because they got back in and then they locked themselves out. You'd have to go down to that building because you had the key to the building. You'd have to get into the key room, get the key. The keys were like coded too, so you'd have to go through this coded chart to like get the key to the room that they're in, and they'd have to sign or something. Like there was paperwork, and then you'd have to submit this report every day of what happened the night before. And then I think we had a meeting. I don't know if it was every day or every week. I think it was one weekend meeting and one weekday meeting. I can't remember. But basically that was the job. For the most part, that's mostly what we did, was that. We mostly were on call when the office was closed. We were responsible for the campus. Because those people who worked in the main building, they lived on campus too, but they weren't students. That was their full-time work. And we were the RAs, so we were like students with those roles, and we basically that's what we did. We let people in and out of their dorms. It was either they forgot or locked themselves out of their actual physical dorm building, or they locked themselves out of their room. If there was some issues or conflict with roommates, they could maybe come to us about it, and like, because we were like, of course they're supposed to call security if it's actually an issue, but like they're supposed to, like, we were aware of what was going on and stuff, and people could come to us if they actually had like something going on after hours. But like, it never, for me, it never really came to that too much, but there was sometimes a little bit of issues. But I liked the job. It was great, and it was nice to have my own space. And I mean, that wasn't all we did. We had to do programming. So I think once, I don't know how often, I think we rotated. So there were four of us main RAs, I think, that each of us had to do a program and get people to come to it. It was either, I think we had to do the programming for the RA. So I think it was always like, I don't know if it was a Friday night, a Saturday night, or during the week. Like, we would always have to pick a night when we were going to do our program. And I think there was a program like I don't know if it was every week somebody had been in charge of a program. But it wasn't like anything excessive, but you'd have to like plan it out. And we kind of each had a program to do. I remember one of mine was called, like, I don't know, it was like a discussion group or something about like something that I can't remember the topic. And then another one I wanted to do was like go hiking one morning, but we couldn't go because it was raining, and like I kind of didn't really want to do it anyways. Nobody did, but like, because I think it was going to be like on a Sunday morning or something, but it was like raining, and then like the main RA in charge was kind of like, do you still want to do it? And I was like, nah, let's not do it. And then he canceled it for me, and like, it wasn't a problem, but like, so I didn't get to do too many programs. I think I did 3. One was like a pizza party or something. Like, I don't remember. Like, these were like, you just would make it up and just make up something so that the people who lived on campus weren't bored every weekend. Like, they had at least some social activities, and we were supposed to be sociable and talk to the people, talk to the students, like, be friendly with everybody, treat everyone equally with respect, and like, but we were allowed to hang out and go out and make friends and like mingle and stuff. And like, that was probably when I started having a lot of fun in San Diego. Because up until that point, I'd been pretty isolated from campus, going back to LA almost every weekend my first year. And then when I started having a really rough time, sometime during maybe like my second year or so, when I started having a rough time, yeah, because that's when I started that practicum. So I started having a rough time that second year. And I remember it was sometime during that second year, not my first term, but the second term, where I started living on campus. But that kind of got me through, because I had a lot of good friends that I made, and like, I was able to live on campus with a lot of my friends, and like, I got to see them more, and I wasn't like isolated studying and like just, I was drinking and stuff too, but I was drinking with people and drinking with my friends, and like, I had some really close friends, and we would eat together, and like, I had this really good friend that I had made that started like cooking me dinners and cooking me meals, and like, we got along really, really great. And like, yeah, and the relationship started developing, and things were getting a lot better for me then. I met, let me see, yeah, some of my closest friends I met during that year. Like, I was chill with everybody in my cohort, but like, I would just study and then go home. Like, I would go to school, I would go to practicum, I would go home. I wouldn't like hang out way too much. Like, I think we would go out like a little bit, and I had some friends from LA that would come out because they got a little, like, they would get bored, and like, they were used to me coming up like every weekend. And then like, I remember during that year, they started coming down a lot too, and so we would hang out a lot, and that was fun. Like, I had like a really good social life that year. That's when my social life got really good, and it was probably pretty ideal. Like, everything on the serious side, as far as like professional with like school and stuff, it was pretty shitty. But then when it came to, the RA job and all the socializing and like all the stuff that happened outside of practicum and school was really great, and on weekends and stuff. And like, so it really helped. I had like a really good supportive group of people, and like, and for the first time, it wasn't, well, not the first time, but the second time, I guess, in my life, it wasn't like fully like religious people. So I felt like I could be myself more around them, and like we had good connections, and there was a lot of trust, and like it was a great time. Um, and I remember being with them, being with all these friends, enjoying our time together, me and all these people, and um, yeah, I really liked I really liked it. I liked I liked being with them. Like we had a really good time. Um, but yeah, that was mostly what I did for the job. I think also when you were on duty on the weekends, you would have the duty phone for the whole weekend. So I think, if I remember correctly, I think on weekends you couldn't leave campus. You weren't allowed to leave campus. So like you could ask other people, hey, can you go out and like get me food? And this was kind of before like people would order Uber Eats and pizzas and all that kind of stuff. Like I guess you could order pizza delivery, but I think we weren't allowed to leave campus as far as I know, if you were on duty. Because if somebody had a key, if somebody needed to um, get back in their room, you were the one that would have had the key for them to get in the room. But I think you could be like, hey, I need to go grocery shop real quick, like, and talk to, if there was another RA, and talk to them and be like, hey, like, could you watch the duty phone from like noon to like 2 p.m. on like Sunday or whatever. Like you could arrange with them to kind of like cover for you a little bit, but like you didn't really need to do that. But like we kind of would cover for each other if it was like necessities, like if you need to run a quick errand for like an hour or so, or like, you need to go do some banking real quick or something, where it was like, so if somebody called, like you would be available right away, instead of somebody being like, oh shoot, like I'm all the way across town and have like 40 minutes, I gotta drive all the way back. Because like you would never know, like maybe somebody forgot their flash drive and we're trying to do a presentation or something, because everyone had such different schedules, and so it was like you didn't want to leave a student hanging, so it's like it was your responsibility to be available when you're supposed to be available, and especially when you were assigned. um but it wasn't like, I think they could also call security, students could, or like there were other options, like you weren't the only one, but usually you were supposed to be responsible. But I do remember that, and I do remember like having getting close to a guy RA that like we would be on campus together sometimes, and like when he would be on duty on the weekends, like sometimes I would just purposely not make other plans so I could hang out with him, or like we would just hang out on campus and we would play games a lot. We played video games a lot and like watch movies, comedy, all kinds of stuff. And we got really close living on campus, and like had a good time, some great conversations and everything. And like, but he wasn't in my cohort in school, same major but different cohort, not in grad school. And we would talk a lot, and like we got really close. And so like we would hang out in his room and stuff, and like he would usually have his windows open or doors open and stuff, and like he was way more social than I was. Like I was social with the people in my cohort, but he was social with like everybody on campus. I wasn't really that social with everybody on campus, but we had a lot of friends overlapping that we both knew, because he knew a lot of the grad students that lived on campus, and especially the ones who worked on campus. He was interactive with a lot of them, and had, it was okay to date people, like, but I think you had to disclose it to like your bosses or something. It was like an awkward thing. And I do remember at some point, like we had to go in once a week to talk to our the one of the people in charge, to kind of check in with her. And I kind of wanted my check-ins every week to just be like, very just like by the book, like the just like logical, like what could have gone better. Like, not like in it, like they weren't grilling us. Like, it was never like, they were never like bad to us from my experience. I never had anybody being like bad to me. Um, but yeah, there was this one lady who she wanted it to be more like emotional and like touchy feely, kind of like, let's really share our emotions and really get like um a deeper connection. And I was kind of like, I felt like she's my boss. I didn't really want to speak to her like that or speak with her like that about my life. But we would have all these meetings and stuff, and I remember like we would all meet like once a week at a certain time with her privately in her office with the door closed. Like, nothing, she wasn't like pervy or anything. It wasn't like that, but she was really like trying to like emotionally connect with everybody and have some like confidential kind of time with us. I did not like that. I was not into it, especially because I was still dealing with this like fucked up supervisor. So I was at that point, I think usually when it came to like any kind of like interactions with like like staff that were kind of like higher up, I was a little sensitive to how they treated me. I kind of am noticing that now. I don't think I noticed it then, but I notice it now. I'm like, whoa, like, because I'm naturally, if it were now and she was like that, I totally would have been way more open with her about my life and everything. But like, I totally was like closed off to her, especially because she didn't like push, but like she kind of like wanted it to be like more, I don't want to call it intimate, but kind of more like a deeper kind of thing. And I did not want that at all. And it wasn't like she was trying to get like inappropriately romantically involved. It wasn't like that. It was just like she wanted our check-ins to be like therapeutic. And I was kind of like, I just want to tell you I had a good week and like work's good. Like, things are fine. Like, oh, I think there's a resident over there who keeps playing his music loud and the other person's complaining, or like there's some situation that came up or whatever. And I would just keep it like strictly work. I didn't want to talk about my emotions or any of that kind of thing. I was just like, I kind of wanted her to back off. And then I remember at a certain point, she started getting a little involved in my life in a way that got a little uncomfortable for me, but like not inappropriate. It wasn't inappropriate. I feel like she was never inappropriate. It was just a little awkward. Because with me and the guy who were hanging out all the time, because we were working together, but we were friends, and so we got to be friends, but we also lived on campus. So it would almost be equivalent to like if you lived in an apartment complex and you made friends with somebody who lived a couple buildings over, and you're just friends and you hang out and stuff, and then the landlord who owns the place is like, why are you guys hanging out? Like, what are you guys doing? It was kind of like that. That's kind of what it felt like. I was like, because she could see like the building where her office was, she could see his room, because like I said, he would like have his windows open or his doors open or whatever, and she would notice I was over there a lot. And sometimes I would be there. It would be like 2 a.m, 3 a.m. We'd be there just like having drinks and laughing and playing like video games and stuff, and like we were bros. Like, we weren't like, it was nothing else. But like, I think a lot of times, like, a lot of females who don't know me don't really understand the relationships that I have with guys. Like, sometimes they don't really understand like I'm very bro-y with my with my guy friends, and like we're not like making out or anything like that. And like, even if we were, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's like we weren't like romantically involved. It had probably never crossed my mind. Like, I'm not saying that it's not an attractive person or that like there's anything wrong with this guy, but I'm used to having dudes as friends. I'm used to having like men as friends. And so I wasn't really like too concerned with it being more than that, Like, I just assumed, he's a dude, we're just hanging out, like playing video games. And in one of our little one-to-ones, I think she called them one-to-ones or one-on-ones or something like that. And in our one-to-one one day, she was like, so like, what's up with you and so-and-so, like this guy, And I was like, what do you mean? Like, nothing, you know? Because I thought that maybe she thought we had an argument or something, or like, I had no idea what she was even getting at. And she kind of got like, you know, how people get a little like awkward and like, and I was just kind of like, I couldn't tell what she was even trying to say to me. Like, I was just kind of taking it like, oh, she thinks she wants to talk, you know, about this guy, you know, and I was just thinking like, maybe something happened and she thinks I was involved. Like, I didn't really know what to think. But she asked me more than once, because it was like maybe 2 or 3 weeks that she had asked me in a row about this guy. And I was just kind of like, why does she keep bringing him up, you know? And like, she's like, can you tell me like what your week is like when you guys are hanging out together? And like, I see you guys together a lot. And I'm like, I know, like, yeah, we're hanging out, you know? And I remember once in between when she started like asking these questions, like one of those weeks, like, cause we would have these meetings like randomly, like say it was like a Wednesday after, like we were gonna have a meeting at like 7 p.m. or something, cause we had all agreed we're available. And so say we would have like a work meeting at 7 p.m. And so me and him would hang out from like after class, like 3:30 to like 7 or something. We'd have like dinner from campus. We got free meals from campus. So we would have like dinner from campus, maybe eat in the cafeteria, maybe eat in his room, maybe grab food off campus, whatever. And then we would eat together or whatever we were doing together. And then because you could see his room from that main building where we would have meetings and stuff, the one that had the kitchen and everything, I remember, you know, one time me and him came down from his dorm suite like together, and she has this like grin on her face, and she's like, I don't remember what she said, but something kind of like in the tone of like, oh, how are you guys, like what have you guys been doing, kind of like a weird kind of vibe like that. But like I still never caught on, because like we weren't doing anything. So in my head I was like, why is she acting like this? Like, she's so weird, you know? And then but I just let it go, because I was like, I really didn't know what she thought was going on. And I just never put a finger on it. I just knew that she always was asking me about him. And I was just thinking like, I couldn't wrap my head around it, but I never like went too deeply into thinking about it. I was just like, we're going to have another meeting, and then she's going to want to talk about him or whatever. And at one meeting, I guess she had said to me, like, me and the cohort friend that was also an RA that I said like was encouraging me to apply. So at one point she was talking to me and her in like the kitchen area or in her office area, and was like, come in here, ladies, or something like that. And then like, I remember her having this whole meeting once where she wanted to talk about like gender identity, and she totally like put me on the spot, and she's like, I'm so sorry that I called you guys ladies, and then I realized that like, I don't really know if you identify as a lady, and like, and I was just like, I don't even know what to say. I was just like, I just wanted the attention like off of me like right away. So I was just like, don't worry about it. Like, you can call me a lady, I'm a woman, like whatever. Like, and then I don't know if she wanted to talk about sexual orientation, but I think she wanted to talk about like pronouns. And I was a little, that was probably one of the first times anyone had ever said something like that to me, and kind of like called to the attention, you know, that I'm not like this like fully femme person. And it wasn't necessarily inappropriate. I was just a little uncomfortable, because I wasn't used to talking about that kind of thing at all. And so she kind of like didn't push much past that, but I was like, that was really awkward. And then I remember there was another point where, you know, after she had kind of made that weird comment about me and this guy, there was another point where she had asked me, you know, she kind of was more forward with me about it, and she was like, I can't remember exactly her wording, but it was something along the lines of like, she had me sit down, you know, in our one-on-one one of those days, one of those afternoons when I was available to do it or whatever. And she's like, oh, it's our time of the week where we get to talk, and like, oh, like, is there anything you want to talk about? Like, no. And she started kind of like talking a little bit about like, you know, if you ever have interests in anyone, like, are you like, how are things going with your friends? How are things going with your classmates? Like, how's your social life, kind of thing? And I was kind of like, yeah, it's good. Like, it's great. You know, everything's been even better since I moved on the campus. You know, like, I really liked the social experiences I was having and stuff. And like, I didn't want her too involved, but she kept asking me about this guy again, about this RA, and she was just, the way she worded it was just like, I finally understood what she was trying to ask me. And she's like, she's like, so it's okay, you know, if you kind of have an interest in one of the other RAs. And I was just thinking like, what, like like, what RAs? I was like, oh, like, okay, like, because I just said like, okay, you know, like, because she was just making, I thought maybe it's a matter of fact statement, we're just gonna go over this topic again, just matter of fact, you know. And then she's kind of like, it's okay if you're like interested in one of them, but you know, like we discussed, you know, when you guys started this job, you know, like, and nobody's in trouble, but if you need to talk about it, or if there's any kind of questions, if you want to talk about your relationship with you and this guy RA, you know, like, I'm here to talk about it, and like, you know, it's between us, and like, we can do the paperwork, and you know, we don't have to like discuss it in the meeting or whatever. And I was like, wait, what? Like, like, discuss what, you know? And like, and she's like, yeah, I know that you guys are like, you know, you guys have feelings for each other, and you guys are like involved. And I was like, no, we're not. Like, we're not involved. And she's like, and she was kind of like, well, I see you, you know, I see you with him all the time. I see you coming out of his room at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And like, I know you guys have drinks sometimes, and it's okay if you guys drink. And like, you know, you guys are adults. And like, she was like talking to me like really weird. And I was just like, what is going on? And like, it was a little embarrassing of a conversation, because I was just like, what the hell is going on? Because she kept going on and on and on. And she didn't believe me that I wasn't like with this guy. And she's just like, it's okay, it's okay. And I'm like, but we're not. And she's like, and so, because I kept denying it, because nothing was going on. And she was like, look, like, I know that maybe like you guys have an agreement or whatever, but she was just like, I see you coming out of there. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, yeah, we just like to get drunk, like have drinks and play video games late at night on the weekend sometimes. And she's like, yeah, so you guys are up till 3 o'clock in the morning? Because I told her we were playing Donkey Kong. She's like, you guys are up till 3 in the morning playing Donkey Kong? I'm like, yeah. Like, to me, I was just like, of course. Like, what else are we gonna do? Like, but it was stuff. It was that I was just like, you know, like, I felt a little odd. That was the only time when I kind of felt odd living on campus, was because she was so a little involved. Once she got involved with that, it made me feel a little awkward, because me and him weren't dating. We were just really close friends, and I was just like, this is how I am with my guy friends. We hang out and we talk, and we have our little hidden little secret jokes and our little like inside jokes and stuff. And so in the meetings, we might be like laughing about giggling some stupid thing, you know, or like have some weird little inside joke, and like we talk, and we might be like, you know, talking about something kind of like under our breath, like, you know, not like talking about it with the rest of the staff in the meeting, and we'll just be like to ourselves, just kind of like with this little conversation on the side, and like not like disrupting the meeting, but you know, sometimes in meetings it's like more casual, and like, and she would like notice that, and I guess she really had her eye on it, and it kind of made me it was a little bit embarrassing and weird, because I was just like, what the hell is going on? Because then I started feeling weird. For a while I felt a little bit weird around him, just because I was like, dude, she's like really noticing all the stuff that we do together. But then, like, because I knew we weren't doing anything, I didn't really care. But like, I just felt a little odd that like, if she saw us coming into meetings together, or if she knew that me and him had like gone and done something together, like gone to a bar together or something, like anytime that she kind of knew anything about us, she seemed like, to me it was a little nosy, like, but I do understand that she kind of thought that like we needed to disclose something for the rules or whatever. But I was just like, that was weird for me. I was just like, dude, like how she kind of confronted me about it, it was a little awkward, and it was a little bit embarrassing just because like once I kind of because it had gone on for like multiple, like probably 3 weeks of our little one-to-one sessions, but it was that last one, that third session where she kind of delved in more detail about like what she thought was happening, and I was just like, oh shoot, like all this time. And I don't know if she thought we were dating and other people thought we were dating, like I don't really know. um but I started feeling a little weird. Like I didn't feel weird around him, and I think I mentioned it to him, but I don't remember when, if I mentioned it to him while we still were working as RAs on the job, or if I mentioned it to him because we're still friends, and I may have mentioned it to him then or like way later, where I was like, yeah, she thought we were going out or whatever. But it was just weird that she confronted me about it, and I was just like, whoa, like this is a little too far. And I was kind of interested in somebody, but it wasn't him. Not that, I mean, you know, like he's a nice guy, but I had eyes for someone, you know. I wasn't even like thinking about him on that level too much, but like, you know, like I'd say whenever I meet somebody, you know, the thought kind of crosses my mind. Like when I get a good vibe with somebody and I don't really know them, the thought crosses my mind, just kind of like, let's see where this goes. If it goes anywhere further than, you know, just us having a good vibe, like I'm down. And that's kind of probably about as far as I thought about it. Was like, yeah, like I would consider, if I have an interest in this person, like that would have been kind of like, you know, I would consider like compatibility, and if I have an interest in this guy, but I wasn't really like actively pursuing him or trying to like get together at any point. But I do remember I did at one point tell a friend of mine that I considered, I was like, because I think another friend of mine confronted me about it, someone who lived off campus, and I remember her telling me, or I don't know if she asked me if I was into him or what, and I was kind of like, it's kind of hard to tell. Like I didn't really know, because I didn't really know him very well, but I was like, yeah, we get along really great, and like, you know, he's kind of like the type of person that I would at least like. I didn't really know him really good, but I was just like, yeah, I'm totally down to be like playing video games and talking anime with guys. Like that's like my thing, you know? So like, you know, anytime I get like that kind of vibe, I'm like, yes, a nerd. Like let's do this, you know? I wouldn't consider him a nerd, but it's like I'm really into like nerdy guys. And so like, you know, at first I didn't really know. And I remember kind of telling her that I was kind of like, yeah, he's, you know, towards my type, but like I wasn't like fully interested enough to like pursue, or like I wasn't really like fully interested. It wasn't like that. I never really had like a deep interest in a way where I was like, I want things to go further or whatever. But I think I'm like that with a lot of my friends, in all honesty. There is like some, I would say like there's some form of an attraction, but it's not necessarily like I want it to be like we're dating or anything like that. So I kind of noticed that just because we got along so well. And I do remember once when I was at her house with him and the lady whose house it was, and this other friend who I was actually interested in, that other person. And that friend whose house it was kind of like, oh, like, you two should date, you know? And and he was like, no, you know? And I was just like, I didn't say anything. I was just kind of like, that was awkward. Like, why did you say that kind of thing? And I remember like, I think we'd been eating pizza or something, but I had really had to go to the bathroom for a while at a certain point. And then I just picked that point to like get up and go to the bathroom. And then like everyone kind of thought like, oh, like, no, like, are you offended? Like, did we hurt your feelings kind of thing? And they're like, oh, like, what's wrong? I'm like, I just gotta go to the bathroom, like. And I was like, I kind of just want to like exit this conversation, but like, I kind of told her because she asked me about him, and I was kind of like, yeah, like, there's an attraction in a way that like I like his personality and stuff, but I'm not like trying to pursue him or anything. It wasn't like that. And so I had told her that like before she kind of mentioned this thing that she thought we should date, and I was just like, dude, like, why the fuck would you say that? But I mean, like, then I learned, I'm like, she's a loose cannon, do not tell her anything. But like, there was really nothing to tell. Like, that's about as far as things went with like any kind of like thought of like, okay, would I be interested, but I wasn't interested. I mean, if I was, there wouldn't have been an issue, but it's like, I like, we're friends. Like, I'm not really trying to, like, I don't know. Like, that's not really what our friendship is about. We're not trying to, like, hook up with each other. But, yeah. But I think it was just a little awkward that a little bit of school people were a little bit like that friend, and then the kind of boss-ish type of person of the RAs, that was a little awkward for me. So as far as living on campus and kind of like my social life, those were kind of like the main things that came up. Was just kind of like I started feeling a little bit awkward with this kind of nosy boss, but it wasn't like too bad. Like, I wasn't like fully avoiding her, because I mean, my other friend had confirmed too. He's like, yeah, she is kind of weird, like, talking to her. And I was like, okay, thank God it's not just me who thinks that. And so we were both kind of like that. And then I remember the other friend who had told me to apply. She was pretty friendly. But like, I never really hung out with her too much. Like, I tried to hang out with her a lot, but she just didn't seem interested to like hang out. And she kind of like mentioned once in front of that nosy boss leader person, she kind of mentioned in front of her once like how close of friends we were and stuff, and I felt like so awkward. I was like, dude, like, do you have to like say this in front of everybody? But like, so I just kind of like made this like face and didn't say anything. And then that cohort friend called me out on it, and she was like, why aren't you saying anything, and why did you make that face? And I was just thinking like, oh shit, like, can you guys just leave me alone? Like, but I don't know, I was just kind of like, I'm the kind of person that, like, if you want to talk about something, just like take me aside and talk about it. Like, we don't have to do this in front of a whole group of people. And like, it was just awkward for me. I was just like, geez, like, can you guys just leave me alone? But I mean, like, that was really the only stuff that really happened. And then I remember, because I was having so many problems with the supervisor still, through my practicum, I remember once, the lady who had encouraged me to apply, she was going to be on duty next. And so I was supposed to hand off the duty phone to her, let's call it Monday morning before 9 a.m. because I had to leave. And I was knocking on her door and calling her phone, and she wasn't answering. And there was still a gap of time between when I had to be at practicum and when I had to talk to her or whatever. Like, when I had to be at practicum, and when I needed to hand off it was like a whole backpack kit with like a first aid kit, and then that phone and the charger and all these other things in there. And I had to hand that off to her, but she wasn't responding. And so I thought I was gonna run late, and so I tried to take the duty phone and everything with me to my practicum, which basically work. Like, I was working like a 20-hour work week through that practicum for free, basically. And then I think we got like a $100 or $200 a month stipend, but we worked like 20 hours a week. Maybe even more, because you had to like take home materials and study and like prep for like groups and sessions and stuff, so it was probably more than that. But we only documented like 20 hours a week. And then I couldn't get her to wake up, and so I was like, well, I don't want to drop my responsibilities, and I can't just leave the phone at school, so it made more sense for me to take it with me. And then I remember in one of the meetings, the guy RA that was like in charge of the RAs, he was like kind of like giving me kudos for my work. He was like, "Oh, like you did a really good job." Like he was kind of like, and she did this really good job the other day, like being a part of a team player. Like she could have just dropped the phone or like not done it or like, but she took responsibility and was like responsible and took it with her to practical and stuff. And I don't know if I misheard something or what, but I thought he was calling me out saying, "You did a bad job. You shouldn't have done this. You should have like followed some other protocol." And I was just like, because I remember I kind of shut down in that meeting. I was like, I fucked up, like damn. Because I was like I mentioned before, like I was kind of sensitive about like leadership people, and so I was just like, oh damn, like he's saying I did a bad job. So then the lady, one of the main ladies two ladies who had the offices in there, not the one who was like trying to like confront me about me and my friend dating or whatever instead of playing video games, like it was the other lady. And so this other lady, she was the one who was really in charge of everybody, all of us. And so I remember messaging her, like, I didn't mean to like do anything wrong, and like I know that this guy was saying all this other stuff, and like I didn't know what else I was supposed to do because like this other person wasn't waking up, and like here's the situation, like I didn't really know. And then like she took that message and gave it to him, and being like, she's upset, like because I was upset because I thought he was upset. And so I was like, she told him to like talk to me. And so one day he calls me over to his room because he lived on campus too. He calls me over to his room like one morning, like when I wasn't on duty anymore, but it was like a couple days after that incident. So let's say the incident where I took the phone to practicum, which wasn't a problem. It was good. And then we had a meeting maybe the next day when he mentioned that he thought I did a good job, but I took it the wrong way and thought he was saying I did a bad job. And then the meeting, the time when I I think it was maybe the day after that where I sent that email, and then maybe the next day he called me into his room, like over to his dorm, and I come over there, and I think, at this point I still didn't know that I had done the right thing. I thought that I did the wrong thing. And he's just like, yeah, like so and so says that you are upset with me about like what I said in the meeting, and like he was kind of like not sure, like, because I mean he wasn't saying anything mean, but I just like took it the wrong way. Maybe I wasn't listening, maybe I zoned out, I don't really know, but I thought that he was like saying I did something wrong. And then he starts talking to me, and I start like bawling because I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck, and he's just like, he was saying like he was trying to like explain like, like you did good, like, and you're a team player and we appreciate your work and all this kind of stuff. And at that, because I thought I was gonna get fired or something, like I didn't know what was going on. Like I was like completely like, I don't know what the hell was wrong with it. Like I definitely had issues going on, but like I wasn't aware maybe of how much issues I had going on. I was just ignoring it all. And then, I start like bawling, and this guy's just like, what is wrong? Like, but because I was always hanging out with him and we'd go out for drinks and we'd be like at the bar and stuff. And so we kind of had this bro-y relationship. And so with most of my guy friends and stuff, and most of the guys I hang out with, I'm never like crying about things, but like, not that there's anything wrong with it, but like usually I'm like just with my homies and we're hanging out, and like that's what we're doing. Like we're not usually having some emotional breakdown like kind of conversations. Like usually, we're just like, there's, I don't know, like guys don't tend to do that a whole lot. Like there are guys that do, but it's like, I would say that's not really something that most guys are comfortable planning to do. Like they don't necessarily meet up to have like tearful social interactions. Like that's not like usually what they plan, but there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying, like, me and this other guy, like he's this military guy, and like we kind of had this like bro-y relationship outside of work. It was like, that's kind of how I was with a lot of my guy friends, and a lot of them were previously, a lot of them were military veterans. And so, we'd go out for drinks a lot, and like just like shoot the shit and just be like whatever, just talk about whatever over some beers, and like that's kind of most of how our relationships were. And so like it was just, I could tell he was just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, how are you even like crying about this? Like, and I didn't know what was going on, so he was just like, what's wrong, like when he asked me what was wrong, and I was just like, I hate my supervisor. Like, I don't even remember what I said, but I just remember just being like, all of a sudden, like, she sucks, and like, all this kind of stuff. And like, that was like the first time, I think he was the first person I told. And I was just like, dear God, like, it was a little awkward for me too, but I was just like, I felt bad that I did that to him. I was just like, I am sorry. I know this is awkward, and I did not mean to be all like weepy and everything, but like it was really weird because like I just misunderstood the whole situation. Like, I didn't know what was going on. Like I was totally in my head about my own situation, but not really in my head because I didn't even really know what was going on, and I was trying to block it out, and like it just all came out. And then like this poor guy, like, I know how it is if like men are like around women and they start crying, and like he didn't make me cry or anything, but like I think he kind of thought he did. And so I feel like for like a second he felt kind of bad because I didn't really say what was going on. And then like once I told him it was my supervisor, and I was just like losing my shit over it, like basically he was just like, yeah, I've had like really bad experiences with people like that too. And like we kind of chatted a while, and he's like, yeah, you want to watch like Star Wars or something? You want to like play video games? And we're like, nah, like I think I just need to go back to my room and like take a nap or something. I'll leave you alone. And from that point, I was kind of like, I remember we used to send each other email kudos for like work meetings and stuff. Like, if you have a kudos you want to send to someone, and I sent a nice one, like, kudos to this guy for, listening to me and hearing me out, and like taking the time, because I was really having like an emotional time that day. And like, I felt awkward about it and bad about it at the same time, but like, I was grateful that he like at least heard me out. But I was just like, oh shit, but I think it was just a big misunderstanding, and I had a lot of bullshit going on. But that was crazy, man. That was just crazy. And yeah, like, it kind of put things into perspective at that point. That was like my second year of grad school, and it kind of put things into perspective. And so next I'll talk more about the situation where I left the RA position and then went into living back with the previous roommate that had the kid. And so basically what happened, as the term came towards an end, we had to apply for the next position for the next term. Like, they made us all apply, and the rules had changed so that we were gonna have to, instead of staying in our own private suite, we would have to share, so that each RA, and I think it was a financial thing with the school, each RA was going to share a suite, so we would each get our own dorm room, because like, remember I said each suite had two bedrooms, and so we would have each had our own bedroom. And so I would have been sharing with the lady who would have become, like, who was my cohort friend. I would have been sharing a room with her, like a suite with her. And I didn't want to do that because I liked my privacy, and I was like, that is not enough privacy to be like sharing an actual suite. And at this point, I knew that her and the person that I was kind of like very fond of, they didn't really get along too good. And I was kind of trying to like foresee how that would be, because I was like trying to get closer to that person. But I was like, I can't have her over and stuff if this other person is living, if we're living together, it's going to get in the way of me like getting to know her, because I knew that they kind of had some kind of falling out. So, I'll talk a little bit. Yeah, so basically, I ended up moving back in with the other guy, but I'll talk more about that process in the next episode, because this is already over an hour. And if I post, I might post the daily after this. I might tag it on to the end of this. I don't really know what I'm gonna do, honestly, because I haven't hit that part of the day yet. But all right.